Good morning. It's January the 22nd. My name's Anita Williams. You might remember me from Cannon Valley Church or City Church in Swansea, good friends of Dale and Helen. We're now up in Loughborough. I'm one of the pastors in Teen Challenge and I manage the Men's Rehabilitation Centre there. I'd love to just put a little bit of context to what I'm going to talk to you about this morning. And I love the book of Proverbs. I absolutely love how practical it is, how present it is, how real it is, and how it really helps us to have wisdom in just really everyday parts of life. So I'd love to give you a little bit of context. So I want you to picture me sitting at my desk and I've just been faced with a really challenging, difficult situation. And I'm sitting there, I'm on my own in my office. I'm frustrated. The flesh is like, ooh. And I'm reacting, there's emotions that are running all over the place. And I'm like, God, I really need you to speak to me here. I really need to know how to handle this situation. Would you give me the wisdom that I need to do this well? Because if I'm left to my own devices and my own emotions, it's not going to end well. They are my words. Then I get this text, and the text is off Helen, and she says, Dale's asking, would you be a guest on our devotional through January? And we're thinking January the 22nd, Proverbs 22. And straight away I'm like, yes, anything for those guys. They are incredible. And so I get my Bible out, which is sitting on my desk, and I start to open it to Proverbs 22. And I'm praying, God, would you give me a word of encouragement? Would you speak to me through this passage so that I can, bring some hope and encouragement to Hope Church on January the 22nd? That's my prayer. I start reading and I get to verse 3, and the incredible thing about God is how present he is, how he hears our cry, and he's so faithful in our moments when we really need him, and it just stops me in my tracks and doesn't necessarily give me a word for you in those moments. What he does is he speaks into my situation. And we read this verse to you, 22 verse 3. A prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly in and suffers the consequences. Right there, right then, God is like, Anita, I see your emotions. I see your cry. I see that you're recognizing if you go blazing in on this situation, it's not going to end well and you will suffer the consequences. But this is the way out. This is what you do. The prudent person sees the danger and they take precautions. What's a prudent person? It's not necessarily a word we use so much, but a prudent person, it's someone who's wise. It's someone who's sensible. It's someone who's cautious. It's someone who takes advice. It's someone who thinks things through. They see something and then they take precautions, because that's what wise people do. Wise people don't go running in like the bull at the china shop. Wise people aren't led by their emotions. They hold back. They pause. The wise man or woman will invite God in and ask for help. And then we don't have to face the consequences. Boy, was I so glad to have that text that morning, and so glad that God was there just to meet my cry. And it just leads me to a little bit further on in that chapter, verse 17, where it talks about, listen to the words of the wise, apply your heart to my instruction, for it's good to keep these sayings in your heart and always ready on your lips. I'm teaching you today, yes you, so that you will trust in the Lord. I've written 30 sayings. I'm pretty sure there's more than 30 sayings in Proverbs. But it says, I've written these 30 sayings for you, filled with advice and knowledge. If ever there's a time we need advice, if ever there's a time we need knowledge, if ever there's a time we need the wisdom of God, it's right now. And in that very first verse there, verse 17, it says two verbs: listen to the words of the wise and apply them to your heart. to his instruction, apply his instruction to your heart. Then in verse 18, it gives us the why it's good to keep them in our heart and why it's good to have them ready on our lips. Because we'll trust in the Lord. And it says that those verses, those wisdom, they're filled with advice and knowledge. If you're lacking in wisdom, if you need advice and knowledge, I would encourage you, get into the Word of God, because it's filled with advice and knowledge. It's not just a history book. It's an ever-present help in times of trouble. That's what the Word of God is. And I want to encourage you, don't stop pausing and inviting God into your day. And maybe even today, there'll be a point where the emotions run riot, where you're reacting. Maybe it's a situation that's just not fair. But I want to encourage you, stop. Listen to his word. Apply it to your heart and it will go well. Let me leave you with this verse. In Psalm 119, verse 11, it says this: I've hidden your word in my heart so that I may not sin against you.